Hello everyone, and today we are going to be looking at my new texture photos I've released on my Gumroad. The techniques we're going to be looking at today is some general Procreate work, as well as how to use the textures. It's very simple to use, and they can add a really wonderful bit of variation to your pictures. So here I have a little character and some really, really badly drawn surroundings, just for an idea of what I'm going to have there. And we are going to use the textures to make it really pop. So I'm going to begin by filling in the colours of this character, and we're going to just make they're going to hopefully be lineless, and so is the rest of the drawing here. Almost like a painterly thing, but instead we're going to make it quite flat and quite and just using the textures to add something instead of the colours. So to begin adding the flats, what I'm going to do is duplicate this image, and so that we have one sketch above and one sketch below. I'm going to really lower the opacity to only about 13%, and then I'm going to take my colours and I'm just going to speed through this bit for you. I'm using, as usual, I'm going to be using the studio pen to fill in. The reason why I'm not using the Procreate Fill tool immediately is because I really want to have control of these lines that I'm putting in before instead of using a reference layer, which I do recommend you check out because they're very useful, but I find then I don't always get the lines I want, so I prefer doing it by hand over a sketch. Now, because I copied and pasted this leg here, what I can do is select this, copy and paste the colour as well, and just make it fit. Now, it's really important that this one isn't on a separate layer because of what I've just done. So I've selected that, I've copied and pasted it, and I'm just going to click clear here, and that will get rid of the brown which I put on the wrong layer there. But it's really important they're separate for this precise reason. I don't like the colour of the skin tone and the shorts together, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Hue, Saturation, Brightness, and I'm going to change it a little bit to a colour that I might like a little bit more. So for the hair on here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a really dark colour and make the natural hair there. Because the idea is that they're going to have a fade. Now this is the first texture we're going to add, but we're not going to use the photos for it. This I'm just going to look through what I think might work on here, and I think I'm going to use probably a charcoal because that will give it the kind of texture that I'm looking for. And then if we take away this sketch, obviously they're not perfect, but we've got a good idea of their shape and everything. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave their details for now, and I'm going to work on their surroundings. So we're going to begin by making quite a basic shape. And filling that in. And then on top of that, I'm just going to change it slightly so I can see what I'm doing. I'm just going to create a few rocks and things. So, now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to probably select all of these, group them so they're out of the way, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my photos and use probably this texture, which is a concrete wall I took a photo of. Again, all of these textures are available on my Gumroad for free or by donation. I'm just going to lower the opacity a bit so I can see what I'm doing, and then I'm going to freeform it, hold that down, and put all of these corners in place, because this will give it the perspective that I want. And because we're going to be using clipping masks, you can make it a little bit bigger just to make sure it encompasses everything. We will ignore the other bits for now. And what I usually do now is make the opacity bigger. What I will do is create a clipping mask, which you tap on the layer and click clipping mask. And then I will have a look at the sorts of things I can put on. So I'll usually, for just a plain texture, I'll go for something like a multiply, and I'll take it down. So we've got this really lovely subtle texture. What I often find is very helpful is it's set to normal, and then if I take the saturation down and I maybe move the bright, this will change the contrast. So if you think these dark bits are too dark, you might want to change it so there's less texture there. We could make it darker, and then it'll all have a different effect. So darken has a much different effect. As does multiply, it's not so intense, it's more even. Or we could lighten it, and then that also has a similar effect. Now, not quite the same. The darken doesn't work anymore, and multiply isn't as strong, but it does provide a slightly different texture that you might prefer. What I am going to do is I am going to probably leave it roughly like that, take the opacity down, and then we've got this nice texture here. I'm also going to add a photo, so I'm going to use this stone one, and I'm just going to make it quite big, and then I'm going to clipping mask that, and also hide that, because we don't need to see that, do we? So because this has quite a red texture and I don't want the earth to have that, I'm going to take the saturation down when I do this. I'm going to just change the colour of the actual stones. And then we can take different layers like a multiply and add this texture. The reason why this isn't working very nicely compared to the path is because it is too similar in value. So if I make these a little bit lighter, that works very nicely, I'd say. And next I think we'll draw just a little bit of grass background. So I'm doing this above so I can see what I'm doing, but I'm then going to take it and put it under the path there. Might just take that and make it that more even. And then we can also add some little bits and pieces like that. Which is always quite fun. I will also just take some in the same colour and add some here. Some little bits of grass. And we'll come back to adding texture to that in a minute. Because first we are going to take low saturated brown, and we're going to take a different brush for this one because I don't want it to appear too rounded. I do quite enjoy Blackburn, which is a Procreate brush for trees, because you have a lot of variation and it's very twig-like the way they're drawn. And so what we're going to do is we're going to probably go back to our studio pen, go back to a nice green, and I'm going to start adding bits and pieces of tree. I'm also going to add some behind the tree, and I'll make this a little bit darker so I can tell the difference between the layers. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take another texture photo. So this time I'm going to take this wood texture. I'm going to make it fit here. I'm going to clipping mask onto there and see if that makes a nice difference. I think that's quite nice. I don't think we have to change it to black and white for this one. I find the multiply doesn't look too wonderful. I might just stick it to normal, or we might use... Oh, overlay is quite nice. I quite like that. I quite like the overlay. So then I'm going to duplicate that. And I'm going to move this one over here. But for now, let's add some texture to the leaves. So I'm going to take this photo, I'm going to make it fit here, again, clipping mask. Let's see if it looks okay with the right colours. We might want to even out these colours a little bit, so I think what I'm going to do is turn it back to normal so I can see what I'm doing, and take the saturation down. Saturation should make it just a little bit easier to add some texture without it interrupting too much how that works. I'm going to again duplicate that. This time I'm going to turn it a little bit just so we don't have exactly the same textures on the tree. That looks really good. And then I will duplicate this one again. This time we're going to take it onto this layer, clipping mask, and then we've got some texture there too. Though I'm going to take this down a bit, just so, or maybe up a bit. I think up a bit might be a bit better, just so we have a little bit more contrast. Stay there, and then we take this and pull it here. Perfect. And we're going to add a little bit of texture to the grass. So for this, I think I might go into the dry folder. It doesn't have to be a plant texture. I don't have to take one of the plant options if I think that something else is going to work better. I might take this foliage one and just see how it looks. So, again, let's have a look and see if this texture works. I think I'm finding that a little too big for a grass texture, so actually I think I'm going to delete that. I'm going to find a better texture for this. So at this point I might even use this cloth texture just to have something there. Move this up a bit. Clipping mask. And that's very nice, it's a really subtle texture. So, I'm also just going to take this colour here. I've got another clipping mask, and so I think add a little bit of texture. Edgehog is one of my favourite brushes for textures. Just adding like a little bit of gradient, slightly gradient texture, just so it looks a little bit natural. And then I think it's time to add some shadows. So I'm going to begin by just taking a purple, which is my favourite colour for shadows. I'm going to take Studio Pen once again. I'm going to then put this one, because I'm doing the trees, a clipping mask. So to show you what I mean, I'm going to first go on this, which is the tree layer, the tree shadow layer. I'm going to take, usually I take one of the lighting things here, so I'd say overlay towards hard mix are your lighting layers. So soft light is what I might go for today. So now I'm going to add some background. Just to keep our colours good, I'm going to take the colour dodge off. Let's make this a lighter colour for the sake of having the sky. Take this colour, I'm going to add a little bit of darkness, and I'm going to take probably Edgehog, and I'm just going to add that texture in there. See what I mean about textured gradients? This brush is excellent for that. I think that looks very good. And now I'm just going to go in and fill in a little friend here. I hope you enjoyed this video. I really enjoyed doing it, and please go and check out my Gumroad. I have a couple of mini comics on there, as well as the texture photos which I have used today. I hope that you find them useful, and please do leave a review if you feel like it. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.